The theme of this 50th celebration is global thinkers and global education. So I'm going to tell you about a global educator, a global thinker, who's a personal hero of mine, Oliver Wendell Holmes Sr., the essayist, poet, physician, and father of the renowned Supreme Court Justice. He was, as you might say, one of the first Americans to study abroad. Born in 1809 in a house not far from where we're sitting, Dr. Holmes was a brilliant student, first at Phillips Academy, then at Harvard. But he set aside a budding literary and legal career to study medicine. It was a brave choice. Hospitals and medical schools at the time were few and far between, and young Holmes quickly realized that in order to become the kind of physician he wanted to be, he had to get out of Boston. He had to find a place where patients were plentiful, intelligent discourse deliberate, and radical reform well received. Holmes went to Paris. There he immersed himself in all things medical. In the early mornings, he attended lectures at the École de Médecine delivered by the medical giants of the day. People like Dr. Dupuytren, Napoleon's battlefield surgeon, whose name is still invoked today to describe a contracture in the hand. He listened to Dr. Velpeau, the son of a blacksmith who had risen on merit and hard work alone to become a leading surgeon and author of the authoritative surgical textbook of the day. At mid-morning, after those lectures, Holmes would go to one of the city's half a dozen hospitals, buildings so massive that they could easily accommodate the nearly 70,000 patients that went through them every year. Boston now at the time treated less than 1,000 patients per year, the two Boston hospitals. Holmes would follow the senior physicians as they examined their patients, expounded on disease theories in vogue at the time, and doled out treatments that more often than not included water cures and cathartics, blistering and bleeding. Lunch would follow, and then until dinner, Holmes would sequester himself in the Amphithéâtre d'Anatomie on the Rue d'Orléans. Now, in America at the time, human dissection was illegal, but in Paris, thousands of cadavers were readily available. Whenever Holmes needed a new body, which was frequent because there were no preservatives at the time, he could pick out one among many for sale at the specialized marché, where the going rate for a fresh adult cadaver was 6 francs, or about $2.50, and he could get a child for even less. Holmes reveled in this academic immersion, but he also understood the importance of the cultural immersion. A gifted linguist, he began incorporating more and more French in his clinic and class notes. He sought out porters, waiters, cabriolet drivers, and French classmates to practice speaking and to learn more about his adopted city. On weekends, he made it a point to attend operas and ballets, stroll through parks and the Louvre, and sample, of course, the city's many restaurants. At the end of his first year, he wrote to his parents, "I am getting more and more a Frenchman. I love to talk French, to eat French, and to drink French every now and then." In other words, Oliver Wendell Holmes had the kind of study abroad experience that many of us in this room can relate to. But that's not the reason I'm telling you his story this morning. A few months into his sojourn, Holmes was invited to observe the hospital rounds of Dr. Pierre Charles Alexander Louis. Tall, thin, and in his 40s, Dr. Louis was neither charming nor eloquent, and not even all that famous or admired among his countrymen. Compared to the swashbuckling, larger-than-life figures like Dr. Dupuytren, who could create grand spectacles in the operating theater or wards, Dr. Louis was, well, boring. Rounds with Dr. Louis consisted of hours of observing, talking to, and examining patients, followed by more hours of categorizing their symptoms, counting up the facts, and comparing outcomes. But Holmes and the other medical students who had come from America, where medicine stagnated because care was disorganized and treatments idiosyncratic, these young Americans studying abroad understood, immediately grasped the importance of Dr. Louis's approach. They understood the radical implications of Dr. Louis's research that proved that fevers did not all have the same cause, and that bleeding, by far the most popular treatment of that time, did little good for patients. These young Americans embraced Dr. Louis's scientific approach, and they referred to him as their mentor, their hero, a beloved parental figure. He became their Angèle Villalta, their Marie-Cécile Ertin. Oliver Wendell Holmes and his fellow students in Paris went on to become leading figures in American medicine. As deans and professors of medical schools, founders of hospitals and medical societies, and preeminent practitioners, they would write time and time again of the impact that their time abroad had on their work. They would incorporate the careful observation, examination, and analysis they'd learned from Dr. Louis into their own practice, and they would make scientific rigor mandatory for their students and for the generations of doctors that would follow. In fact, I would go so far as to say that some of the greatest scientific and clinical achievements in American medicine, particularly in the field of public health, might not have happened if Oliver Wendell Holmes and his fellow American medical students had not studied abroad and met Dr. Louis. The story of Oliver Wendell Holmes is proof that global education is important for all of us. The mere act of placing oneself wholly into a new culture, of challenging comfortable beliefs and perceptions, of living in a place where it takes work and thought and a good dose of humility to survive, can give young doctors the insight and the courage they need to make medicine better. And it is proof that global education is as much about people and the connections they make as it is about classes and the subjects they are taught. It is about the remarkable bond that develops when individuals from different cultures come together to learn from one another. It is about the unique sense of appreciation that can arise when individuals steeped in very different perspectives teach one another. It is about the world of change that can be born of a school year abroad. Thank you.